Greetings, fellow captains, and welcome back to another episode of World of Warships with the Hivehound. And today we're going to be looking at the brand new Tier 5, the Russian Molotov. The Tier 5 premium cruiser that has just been released. I didn't jump on it straight away and bring it out. I wanted to have a couple of games there and get a bit of a feel for it and make sure I was giving you the right information. So let's take a look at the overview. So we have sure shot, which means these shells have a good trajectory and makes hitting your target easier. Long range, so above average range for the guns of that tier, but we do have a bit of a problem with detection, so that it's quite easily spotted, and we're going to make our build around this. So it's not a Kirov class cruiser. It was based on the Kirov class. It was an upgrade known as Project 26 Biz. So they upgraded the guns and added a bit of armor whilst maintaining good speed. So let's take a look at how we've set it up. So for our first upgrade, we've gone for Aiming Systems Mod 1. This is to improve the accuracy, because this is what the ship is all about. So we're reducing the dispersion and also giving our torpedo tubes a quicker time to switch around. We don't particularly care about secondary guns because they're only 100 mil and there's only 6 of them. So we're gonna not pay very much attention to them at all at this stage. And for our second mod, we're going for Steering Gear Mod 2 to increase the rudder shift time, because the Russian cruisers really suffer from having a large radius turning circles and pretty low rudder shift times in comparison to the other cruisers. So let's take a look at the stats. So it only has 24,800 hit points, which is about as low as it gets for a tier 5 cruiser. But it does have surprisingly good armor up to 150 mil. But don't let that fool you. You do not want to get hit in this ship, not at all, and the clip I've picked sort of points that out. So we're fitted with 980mm guns in 3 barrels and 3 turrets, with a range of 17.4 kilometers in our current build, 12.5 second reload and a 22.5 second turn time for our guns. So the guns are reasonably quick to turn, and we've got a good rate of fire. But obviously things like the Nuremberg, they're going to outshoot you speed wise, but you've got the distance. We have the standard Russian torpedoes for when you accidentally come around a corner or set up an ambush for another ship of 4 kilometers. And because of that, the aiming mod that we put on is really going to help. Turning radius is absolutely abysmal, but we do have one of the fastest, if not the fastest ship out there. So this ship is really good for kiting away. And the concealment, it's not good. 12.4 kilometers and 7 whilst firing from smoke. So this is not a ship that you want to be getting up close and personal with. So we're going to compare it to some of its counterparts. So first, its counterpart, the Bajoni, the Tier 5. We've gone for exactly the same setup here. It's pretty much what I use on every single cruiser, in all fairness. It's a pretty fail-safe way of setting her up. So survivability, we have more hit points and more armor in the Bajoni, surprisingly, even though the Molotov is supposed to be the heavily armored variant. So that is something to take into account. We have slightly better range, but only 152mm guns in the same 3x3 setup, but a quicker reload and a slower turning time. A slightly higher chance of causing fire with the main battery as well, which is something to take into account. It does also have slightly better secondaries, but you don't want to be using secondaries in any Russian ship whatsoever. They seem 4-kilometer torpedoes. It does have a smaller turning circle radius, but a slightly better rudder shift time. So that is something to take into account. If you're enjoying the Russian cruisers, it plays very similar, and it has the same poor detectability for a tier 5 cruiser. So sure shot, long reach, and basically it says it's crap turning, which we've already covered. So right, let's move along to the next ship. We're not going to compare it against everything, but we're going to give it a decent overview. So we're going to have a look at the Pensacola first. And so, as you can see, the Pensacola has about 4,000 hit points more, but surprisingly less armor. I was kind of shocked when I read that, but the Pensacola does have the larger 203mm guns, although it does suffer from a lower range, slower reload, and an absolutely awful turret turn time, which will make most battleships blush. So what you're going to notice is basically these are where you get your play styles from. So the Pensacola, you need to plan out your moves well ahead. So Pensacola is slower, but still 32 knots. The turning circle radius is much smaller, and the rudder shift time is as well, down at 5.6 seconds. So a far more agile ship. So the IJN, Imperial Japanese Navy Aoba, again 31,000 hit points. So that's a salvo or two more. It also has the 203mm guns, like the Pensacola, with a good reload time, but poor range. So that is something to consider. If you can get a Aoba to chase you, you're winning. It does, however, though, have 10-kilometer torpedo range. It does have a poor turning circle radius, but the quicker rudder shift time does make it a bit more nimble in comparison. And when it drops down, we didn't drop down to the concealment. The concealment in the Aoba is much better as well. It's only 10 kilometers as opposed to the 12.5. And it also, there we go, and it also has a much lower detectability whilst firing in smoke. So we'll have a final look. We'll look at the Leander, just because I really do like the British ships. And okay, the Leander is a light cruiser. As you can see, we've got the same, it's the standard setup, rudder shift and accuracy. That's what we want from our cruisers. So the Leander is quite badly armored and does have not many hit points, so that's something to take into account. It does have 152mm guns, but it is equipped with 8, so you have got the firepower. You outrange it, but the Leander reloads quicker and has a very similar turret traverse speed. The Leander also has the advantage of 8-kilometer torpedoes, so that is something to take into consideration, but a much lower turning radius, a much quicker turning circle, but you do still outbeat it on speed and detectability. Leander's best in class, I think, for the tier 5 cruisers, so that is definitely something to take into account. So we're going to run over our commander as well. We're using Nikolai Knechasov with Norman Scott for accuracy of our main guns, and Yamamoto for AP penetration. We're focusing the build around fire, so we need to get that extra pen. So we've gone for beyond range, because that is the advantage of this ship. It has more range than everything else. You could burn it down, but that 2% fire chance against the range, it's not something anyone should even consider. Before it's too late, we're not going to bother with that, and we will explain why in a second. Igniter is a good choice for the Russian cruisers. My build's set up for all of them, but there is a reason why we've gone with intuitive. So not so much on the Molotov, but we've got increased time for our sonar and radar when you're in one of the radar cruisers, and you also get that twist and track, so you can see where the pesky destroyers are, and late game, if they're still around, having the ability to know where they are or their general direction, and your high speed will help you get in. Velocity, we're pretty much the fastest, one of the fastest cruisers out there, so that's not a necessary perk. When you're focusing on kiting away, you don't want to be too much faster than the enemies anyway. Punch through, we're not worried about AP penetration multipliers because we get that from Yamamoto, and we're going to be focusing primarily on high explosive damage, which is why we've gone for the equilibrium of power. This is going to improve our chances of setting fires basically by penetrating our shots, and although we lose some damage output, it's primarily the fire damage ticking up that is going to get you the most out of this ship. For our final perk, when I eventually adjust my controller to go down, now steer clear is actually a really good choice for the ship because the turning radius is awful, so improving the rudder shift time is something that I would consider, and it will improve your survivability. But as you probably all know, I'm quite aggressive, so we've gone for fixated to improve our accuracy, our precision and dispersion on the ship. Again, it's all about getting those shots, hitting everything you fire, particularly at range, which is where you're going to get the advantage. We've gone for fully packed, although probably not ideal for the Molotov. Having an extra radar consumable on the radar cruisers is definitely the way to go, and quicker reload, so that's why we've gone for that. Refill station would be ideal for the Molotov because we don't have radar, but it's a general build and I play a lot of these ships, so I'm not going to adjust my command build just for the one ship. So what we're going to do now, we're going to head out, take the Molotov into battle, and let's see how she performs on the high seas. So as you can see, going straight from one match, had a reasonable game, but decided probably not enough to make a video, whereas this second match that we're about to load up into, I picked this match because it was perfect. It really did display how to use the ship, its strengths, its weaknesses, and maybe help you avoid some of the mistakes I made in this game, and hopefully you come out come out on top. I came out on top, spoiler alert, but give you a bit of an advantage when you come to using this ship, so you don't make the same mistakes that I did. So we're primarily a tier 5 game. There's one tier 6 on each team, and we are on the Land of Fire. You're going to see right off from the start, our battleship doesn't want to push. Somehow I end up way out in front of our destroyer because I am an overly aggressive player. This is where the refill, the fully packed, doesn't really benefit the Molotov at all. We've got 4 planes. The planes have a 5-minute duration. We've got 20 minutes worth of planes in a 15-minute match without the cooldown timers. But we do have that extra hydroacoustic surge, which doesn't come in handy in this game, but will come in handy later, especially if like a high destroy game and the destroyers are dominating the end of the match. That is something to it's a bonus. It'll most certainly help. So we're gonna push up to get close. We're gonna use this island ahead of us to turn. As you can see on the mini map, I'm not entirely sure what my destroyer is doing and how I managed to get so far ahead of him, but yeah, see how painfully slow this ship is at turning. You really need to plan ahead on your turns as we spot that Fuso very briefly. I think that was our plane. And we're slowing down, we're trying to get in position. We want to antagonize the enemy as much as possible and get them to chase us. If as soon as they tunnel vision and start chasing us, it's game over for them. We have won. We are victorious. So you're going to see we're going to come up against quite a number of ships on this side, but this game is going to be some serious domination by the blue team. So we decide, alright, okay, we're turning around. We're starting our kiting maneuver as the Dunkirk gets spotted, and we start swinging our guns around. There is a Nuremberg. The Nuremberg is probably the most dangerous ship to us because it's got a high rate of fire. So we don't want him sticking around for too long. That's for sure. And obviously that Dunkirk is going to be pointing his guns this way. Seems where we are spotted. So we start to make a turn because that's what you need to do. And that's exactly what you need to do. You need to get them to fire, fling everything at you, but maintain your distance. Use your accuracy for the benefit of your damage, and cause them to miss. So that Nuremberg, let's see, I want to try and entice him to chase us, but he's quite crafty. He refuses, absolutely refuses to chase us. And I believe if we're not out of his range, we're pretty much on the far extent of his range. It looks like he was going to turn, so I started lifting my shots up, and there we go, score a nice couple of hits and some fires. And we're debating now, do we turn back and start firing at that Dunkirk? We've got to the limit of our range, so we are now going to turn back. We were hoping to stay undetected, but it turns out there's a pesky little destroyer somewhere a bit closer than we would like. So as you can see, the firing angle is pretty good. You don't need to give it full broadside to get your guns going, although we opt not to not to give too much side to the Dunkirk, because that thing can end us really, really quickly. So as you can see, there he goes. There's the Marhan. There is the guy that kept us spotted, and we were quite lucky we got away with that turn, considering there's both a Fuso and a Dunkirk out there. That could have been extremely painful. So we're using the rock to try and hide ourselves from the Dunkirk. We've not seen the Fuso in a while, and try and punish that, I think it was a Marhan, before he gets a chance to get away. The Dunkirk is taking pot shots at our destroyer, so we're going to use that to our advantage and try and get a couple of shots. And there we go, there's the Fuso. We knew he was out there. I was going to start making a turn, but I decided no, that Fuso is, I'm pretty sure that Fuso is going to be sending some love our way, and he did, and he missed absolutely everything. And so we know the Fuso's fired, we know the Dunkirk's fired. There is a cruiser back there, which is probably that Nuremberg. It looks like we're at the extreme range of his guns because he's missing his shots. We take a tiny little bit of damage, nothing to worry about too much there. And my plan was here, I was going to back up to make sure I was heading straight back out. But I realised I was going a bit too quick. That wasn't going to happen. And this is risky. This is probably the dumbest manoeuvre I made. Well, actually, no, there's more. But look at that. We were quite lucky. So it wasn't the Nuremberg. The Nuremberg is behind the Fuso. And there we take our first big hit, and we were reasonably well angled against that Dunkirk, and it still managed to sink one straight into our citadel. I'm sure it's a citadel that gives you that noise, that alert, or it could just be that you've taken a serious hit on damage. Right, so as we're doing, kiting away, as you can see, all the shots are coming in, and well, they're just wasting their shells. That allows our battleship to get some shots back off them. due to the fire rate of that Nuremberg. Bizarrely, there's 2 battleships shooting at me, but that Nuremberg is the biggest threat, because if he gets his eye in and starts landing consistent shots, that's going to be a big problem for us. We have now got back to our battleship, so our battleship has become the primary focus of the Fuso and the Dunkirk. And it's probably, well, not the Dunkirk, I lied. There's the Dunkirk, but again, missing. Because of our speed, it makes us quite hard to hit. So kiting away like this is definitely an advantage. That Nuremberg is going to slip off behind that mountain. We're out of his range now, so I don't think he's going to cause us too many problems. So this is where we're going to start turning our attention to the Fuso. And there you can see the Dunkirk. My battleship is within range. My battleship is broadside. The Dunkirk is just so focused on me, he can't even see. I think it's the New Mexico that's next to me. He can't even see it. So I'm effectively pulling the Dunkirk out of the match, which is what the ship is really good at doing. So we notice we're getting a bit close to the map border. I don't want to be accused of a map border hugger, but that Fuso's pushing, and I want to keep him at the end of my range. The further I am away from him, the larger his dispersion is going to be. And as you can see, the shots he just fired at us, they weren't even in the same square on the map. We got another salvo coming in, and yeah, you're just reducing the chances of hitting us. So much so that his next salvo, he decided, screw that, I'm not even going to fire at you anymore. He's had enough. And we set another fire and get ourselves just over 64,000 damage, and that's going to keep on ticking up quite nicely as the Fuso continues to burn for our amusement. Right, so we got to the point where we need to turn. We have to turn. We're going to run into the map border, and it's not nice to see a ship hugging on the map border. Unfortunately, I thought we would have had a bit more backup, but as you can see, that Fuso's just pulled forward, kept on pushing towards us. The New Mexico has slooped off to the side, and well, we've got another battleship just defending that cap valiantly. And here we go, that pesky Nuremberg is back. We know that the Fuso has given up on shooting at us, and like I said, that Nuremberg to me is the problem ship as we turn back in. So we're firing salvos off at him. We are looking at the Fuso, just trying to pay attention just to see where his guns are aiming, because if they start turning this way, wow, we could be in trouble, and we could be in trouble fast. But no, he's still not paying us any mind at all, and he's now tunnel visioning on our New Mexico, who is bow tanking him. So bit of luck. This is where we make the mistake. We make the turn, the slow, long, painful turn. A bit of luck, the Nuremberg wasn't paying attention, and he loaded HE. He switches to AP, but we continue the turn, and they sail past us without a problem. But this is where the problem lies. The Fuso paid attention to us. One salvo, boom, our last 1,200 hit points gone. But we did rack up 87,000 damage, and we also managed to take out the Nuremberg. So we are just going to speed up the rest of this match because, well, it's fairly uneventful. The Bayern is going to finish off the Fuso that we were antagonising earlier. We've also taken HE shots from somewhere else. That looks like a cruiser due to the speed of the shells. And the destroyers also launched torps, but unfortunately they're going to end up being pretty ineffective. And you can see just how far that Fuso pushed up. And well, yeah, that's it. There's 2 destroyers left, and we are not going to see them for the rest of the match. So we're gonna have a look at the beautiful Japanese Imperial Japanese Navy Aoba as he picks up the cap with the Benson. There will be some very last second tiny little bits of action, but nothing to write home about. One of the destroyers decides to try and interrupt the cap at the very last second, and there he is. There he pops up. He's fired his salvo, but it's too late. The match is already over. So not the best game I've had in the Molotov, sorry, but a good one that showcases ability. As you can see, we come top of the board with our single kill. But so, well, thank you everyone for tuning in. I hope you enjoyed the video. I'm not going to say whether you should buy the Molotov or not. That's entirely up to you. I'm just going to provide you with my opinions and my little guide on how to play it. So thank you very much, and until next time, take care.